And why? That is why I exist. This is the My Hero Academia Power Guide, where I have but one mission. For you to walk away with not just an understanding of the series' power system as a whole, but also of every single ability in My Hero. This video would ideally serve as a comprehensive yet accessible resource. This is going to be a fat one, so let's just get into it. A few rules first. Full spoilers, obviously. Only quirks from the main series will be covered because I'm not trying to die of old age. I will also not cover unnamed quirks unless the character is objectively fairly important. And of course, this will be a very long video, so please use the timestamps that I will provide for you. If you want to watch it all in one sitting, go ahead, but otherwise, use them. Before we talk specifics, let's get our basics right. In My Hero Academia, the nondescript future of Earth brought about quirks, or superpowers. How did they appear? Who knows? The series certainly doesn't. While there are theories within the series' story on how it might have started with genetic influence from a rat-carrying virus, there is no conclusion on that mystery as of right now. The facts, however, are that in this future, 80% of people are born with some kind of special ability, originally called meta-ability before being renamed quirk for the sake of political correctness. Yes, that is an actual plot point. A quirk will appear in a child within the first 4 years of its life. These abilities will often seem almost magical, but they are nonetheless rooted in biology. A quirk is defined by two aspects: the gene that codifies the quirk and a body part that allows for its activation and expression. These two together are called the quirk factor. Important to note here is that these two elements can be separately affected. Let's say your quirk activates only on your hands. If you now lose your hands in a freak accident, your body obviously still has the quirk gene, since genes are stored in every single cell, but your ability is unable to be activated, leaving you functionally quirkless. The appearance of quirk genes seems to be linked with another biological adaptation, namely the loss of one of the joints in the pinky toe. The logic here seems to be that those who have lost that joint are further along in human evolution. Another genetic aspect of quirks is that they are subject to mutation and selection. As people with quirks mate and reproduce, their quirk genes mix and fuse as well, just like every other regular gene. This leads to a phenomenon where quirks become increasingly more powerful and complex as the generations go on, since they become continuously more cocktailed, so to speak. This has given rise to a doomsday theory called the quirk singularity, a cataclysm wherein a new generation of quirk users will be born with quirks so absurdly powerful that neither their minds nor bodies can handle it, leading to chaos and pandemonium. Not many people within the series believe in it, but curiously, immensely powerful quirks with no direct inheritance have been observed to pop up in some red-eyed children. Okay, enough biology. Let's get to some categories, since I know y'all love that. Quirks can broadly be put into three boxes. Emitter or operative types are quirks that either produce or influence an external object, element, or force. This is where shooting fire, telekinesis, and lasers fall into, but also brainwashing and other abilities which influence others. This is by far the most common type of quirk. Transformation or composite types are quirks which can cause the user to undergo a temporary physical change, such as growing your hands or separating your bodies into pieces. In these cases, the use of the quirk is generally dependent on that transformation. Mutant or heteromorph types are quirks which transform the user's body permanently upon first-time activation, often even already being visible at birth. This includes all additional limbs, odd body shapes, or other alterations to the human form. These quirks are thus by definition always active and grant additional sub-abilities related to that physical change. There is a rather rare subtype which can intersect with any of the regular types. This is called the accumulation type, in which the quirk requires the gradual buildup and stockpile of a certain resource. For example, a quirk which can rapidly transform the body fat into explosive energy first necessitates a large quantity of fat to be stored on the user over time. One last detour before we get to the actual list. Quirks are, in every way imaginable, physical traits, very similar to muscles. Thus, they can be exercised the same way, by being repeatedly pushed to their limits, allowed to rest, and then pushed again. And just like muscles, they don't come with a manual, which can lead to its own user misunderstanding their own ability for decades before actually figuring out how it really works. And lastly, the body and the mind are interlinked, and so psychosomatic factors can affect one's quirk the same way it can affect your stomach. For example, a traumatic event can cause the quirk to evolve into a new form, a rare phenomenon called a quirk awakening. Or that trauma can do the opposite, locking away the quirk's true power until that mental blockade is overcome and a reawakening is triggered. Alright, that should cover the very basics. We will add to this as we go. And to go we must, because, oh my god, there are so many! For starters, we have Acid, a simple emitter-type quirk held by Mina Ashido. It allows her to produce a corrosive acid sludge from any part of her skin. This quirk is a great example of how categorizing quirks can be a little tricky, because while she clearly emits something, she also undergoes a permanent physical mutation because of it. Since her acid comes from her skin, the quirk also codifies her skin to be resistant to corrosion, giving it its striking pink coloration. Thus, what seems like a mutation is actually her body's response to the emission of her quirk. Mina has full control over the amount, the consistency, and the actual corrosiveness of her acid, being able to produce both slightly stinging liquid and pudding which melts through metal. Its main weakness is that the pink skin's resistance to acid is not perfect, and can become strained over time, but this can be improved with training. Mina has learned how to use this quirk in various ways, from acidic waves to veils to beams to melting surfaces for mobility to her ultimate move, Acid Man, wherein she coats her entire body in a viscous, humanoid suit of acid that acts as both offense and defense. Anivoice is an emitter-type quirk employed by 1A's rock boy, Koda. It allows him to speak to all animals and give them simple commands, humans excluded. And no, his rock-shaped body is seemingly not related to his quirk at all. His family just kinda looks like that. Anivoice is fairly versatile, as it can take advantage of any animal in the area and their unique abilities. However, because it is sound-based, the animals have to be able to actually hear Koda's voice for it to activate. So a loud noise can disrupt the control. Star student Momoya Yorozu wields the powerful creation quirk, an emitter type which allows her to, well, create any non-living object at will from her body. This works by using up the fat cells in her body, splitting them up into singular molecules and then rearranging them into any combination she desires. The condition for the successful creation is that Momo has to A. have enough fat stored in her body, and B. be able to imagine and somewhat understand the properties and production of the object in question. That is why she is so studious and why her costume includes a book, as she needs to have as much info on a variety of objects as possible. The creations then pop out through her skin, where she can either detach them and use them normally, or even leave them attached to her body for easier transport. Tokoyami is another example of how quirk categories can be a little confusing. You look at a birdman with a demon coming out of his belly and think, well, that's a mutant. But no, his quirk, Dark Shadow, is considered an emitter type, and the bird head has nothing to do with the actual ability. He just do be looking like that for real. The quirk is the creature that emerges from Tokoyami's tummy, a malleable, vaguely bird-shaped mass of dark energy which can levitate, stretch, and otherwise normally interact with the physical world. This Dark Shadow is however not just an ability, it is a sentient being with thoughts and feelings. This is the major crux of the quirk. When exposed to light, Dark Shadow weakens and becomes timid and passive. This makes for less destructive power, but also allows Tokoyami to retain complete control as it's fairly passive and timid. In the darkness, however, Dark Shadow's power increases manyfold, but so does its rage and chaos, making it easy for Tokoyami's will to be overpowered. However, with enough training, Tokoyami has made Dark Shadow a formidable ability and created numerous super moves. With Black Abyss, Tokoyami grafts Dark Shadow onto himself like a set of armor, enhancing his range, durability, and offense. Fallen Angel, meanwhile, exploits Dark Shadow's innate levitation to allow Tokoyami to fly, as he has the creature hug him and lift him up while having it also hide under his cape to increase its strength. Besides these two notable ones, Tokoyami has shown a variety of applications, from whips to prisons, but his ultimate move was only unlocked once he gained full control over Dark Shadow at even its most volatile. Encased in darkness, Tokoyami can use Ragnarok, where he launches a fully manifested Dark Shadow forward to cause massive destruction. Unmistakably a mutant type, Dupli Arms is the quirk possessed by Mizo Shoji. While the most striking feature of this quirk are the multiple tentacles and membranes connected to the user's body, it goes beyond that. This power allows him to grow numerous additional appendages at will, with each one being able to grow duplicates of any of his body parts. So, if he needs an extra eye or an ear, he can just grow one, making him excellent at reconnaissance. And if he needs an extra punch to pack, he can grow himself a fisting tree. This comes at very little risk to him, as all duplicate appendages are non-essential and can be regrown with no sweat. It does obviously hurt losing them though. As an example of a more subtle mutant type quirk, we have Kyokajiro's earphone jack. This quirk mutates the user's earlobes into long headphone cables, with a standard jack plug at the end of them. These earlobes can transmit sound the same way a cable would, so for starters, this quirk allows Jiro to plug her ears directly into her phone. Ew. But earphone jack can do far more than that. The earlobes are both prehensile and elongatable, which gives Jiro both range and dexterity. The jacks at the end of them can also function as detection devices, since they pick up sound through surfaces and transmit it to the ear. So by plugging the jack into the ground or the wall, Jiro can perform highly efficient reconnaissance. The maximum range of her extended lobes is 6 meters, and her total maximum range of detailed hearing is 12 meters. But in addition to transmitting sound from the environment into the body, this quirk can also do the opposite. The user can choose to channel the sound of their own heartbeat into the lobes, which will then transform those sound waves into highly destructive impacts. Usually, this can only be done internally on objects the jack is plugged into, but Jiro has since developed specialized equipment which allows her to send that heartbeat out as a destructive airwave. She can either plug herself into her leg armor, which works as a one powerful monodirectional amplifier, or she can use the two smaller amps on her arms for some complex maneuvers. A very classic emitter type, electrification allows Denki Kaminari to freely produce electricity. However, this comes with a few caveats. The electricity he produces follows semi-realistic physics, so once he discharges it, it will fan out in every direction indiscriminately. Denki himself has no natural way of directing the thunder, and can thus pose a threat to his allies by accident. Additionally, he is only somewhat resistant to his own power, and his brain has a hard limit on how much electricity it can withstand. Once that is reached, he short-circuits, his quirk turns itself off, and he turns into an idiot with almost no brain function. This takes about an hour to wear off. While his brain's limit seems insurmountable, Denki has somewhat overcome the omnidirectional danger of his quirk, as he worked together with the support engineers to develop the sharpshooter gear. This gadget throws out discs which will stick to anything and then singularly attract Denki's lightning, allowing him to focus on a single target with enough preparation. What you see is what you get with this mutant type quirk, which causes engines and exhaust pipes to grow out of the user's body. Where exactly they will grow differs from user to user. Tensei Ida has them in his arms, while Tenya Ida has them in his quads. These mechanical monstrosities do exactly what you'd think. They accelerate the user by shooting out combustive blasts, just like a car. Funny enough, however, these engines don't run on gasoline, but on fruit juice. Speed's the name of the game with this quirk, and so most of its applications center around optimizing its acceleration. By cooling the engines, more power can be used without overheating and stalling, for example. And if that's not enough, the quirk comes with a gnarly upgrade path. As the engines are, despite appearances, biological, they will adapt to strain just like muscles growing after being torn. So a very effective way to improve this quirk is to repeatedly rip out the mufflers out of your body, letting new ones grow, then straining those new ones and ripping them out as well. While it increases your power very quickly, it is also quite painful.
Mr. Clean Magic Eraser powers through tough messes.
So it makes it look like I spent hours cleaning. And you know I didn't.
It makes my running shoe look like new. It's amazing.
It's so good, makes it look like I have magical powers.
Magic Eraser and sheets make cleaning look easy.
Explosion is one of those very self-explanatory quirks. This emitter type allows the user to release explosions of varying sizes from the palm of their hands. The way it works is that the user, Katsuki Bakugo, can secrete a special secondary type of sweat, different from the salt water we all produce. This special sweat has the properties of nitroglycerin, and can only be secreted from his hands. Once he has a good amount of it, he can detonate it at will. He can also choose to store that sweat externally, in grenades or other explosion-adjacent gadgets. While Bakugo can decide when and how much to secrete this explosive sweat, it is still dependent on the usual factors that determine sweating. So it's easier for him to produce it if it's hot or if he's exerting himself, and conversely, cold conditions slow the production down considerably. Another self-explanatory one. Frog is a mutant-type quirk that causes the user to acquire the autonomy and abilities of a frog. As seen in Tsuyu Asui and her family, this quirk affects every user to a different degree, with some being mildly frog-shaped while others are just straight up a human-sized frog. This quirk's goodies include a prehensile tongue that can stretch out to 20 meters, very useful as both a grappling hook and a whip. The muscle anatomy also changes to accommodate frog-like movement, with strong jumps and the ability to cling to surfaces. The quirk also includes some more specific adaptations, like being able to produce a pungent but weak poison, being able to camouflage, and being able to expel one's stomach to clean it. The only real weakness of this quirk is that frog anatomy comes with exothermy, meaning that the user is somewhat cold-blooded and relies on external heat for much of the body's chemical processes. This means that prolonged exposure to the cold will cause the body to shut down and enter brumation, the amphibian and reptilian equivalent of hibernation. Half Cold, Half Hot is, besides being maybe the dumbest named quirk in the main series, an extremely powerful and versatile emitter-type quirk. This quirk was specifically created when Endeavor's Hellflame mixed with Rei's Ice quirk, inheriting both abilities. Thus, Shoto Todoroki is able to produce and control both fire and ice. The real genius of this ability is that it automatically eliminates its own weaknesses. Producing either fire or ice causes the body temperature to reach unsafe values, but by being able to do both, it's easy to self-regulate that temperature continuously. Armed with this non-weakness, Todoroki is a force to be reckoned with, being able to dispense scorching flames and piercing icicles at will, with very little danger to himself. The only real limitation is that he cannot manipulate external sources of these two elements, only those which he creates himself. These two abilities, fire and ice, were initially believed to be localized within specific sections of his body. The left side can only produce fire, and the right can only produce ice. However, both Shoto's internal dialogue and some of his actions in the recent manga have implied that this separation is actually psychological and not physical, meaning that he could overcome it with enough training. The results of that training have, however, not been shown as of writing this video. Our first transformation type is also one of the simplest quirks in the entire series, Kirishima's hardening, which allows him to harden his body. That's kind of it. The degree to which he can harden is variable, and he can force himself to be entirely rock hard, which allows for both excellent offense and defense. Sucks at long range though, and it does have a limit to how much punishment it can take before his skin starts cracking. Invisibility forcefully turns the user permanently invisible, being unable to be turned off as it is a mutant type. The way it specifically functions is that it causes the user's skin to refract light in such a way that they turn transparent. While Toru Hagakure has learned how to manipulate the refraction to cause blinding flares or even redirect lasers, the invisibility remains permanent. Our favorite Frenchman boasts an equally flashy power, the emitter quirk Naval Laser. Again, it's in the name. This quirk allows the user to shoot off a powerful laser beam from their navel. With the right alterations to one's costume, that laser can also be redirected to be fired from other parts of a suit, for example. Said laser can have its size, power, and luminosity altered for any purpose, and its recoil can be increased to a point where it allows for propulsion. However, in Aoyama's case, it comes at a hefty price. Because this power wasn't originally his body isn't adapted to it, leading to the laser leaking out and also messing with his stomach quite a bit. In order to keep it in check, he has to permanently wear a special belt. Baby boy Mineta boasts Pop-Off, a mutant type quirk that causes sticky orbs to grow on his head instead of hair. These balls can be plucked from his head with ease and then thrown around. They will stick to anything except Mineta himself, making them great for both traps and bouncy maneuvers on the part of the user. The only downside is their stickiness is linked to Mineta's physical well-being, and if he overuses them, his head will bleed, making his physical well-being less good. Therefore, the more he uses this quirk, the weaker it gets until he has time to recover. This sweet emitter power allows the user to increase their strength 5-fold for 3 minutes for every 10 grams of sugar they eat. Sugar Rush is thus a fairly basic power-up with a bit of a special activation. Without the sugar, the quirk won't activate, and while the quirk is active, the user, Sato, suffers from hypoglycemia, which reduces the brain's functions. Also, yes, it is considered an emitter type according to the databooks, despite definitely causing a transformation. Do not ask me why, because I do not know. Hanta Sero's mutant type quirk is Tape, and guess what? This one also is fairly straightforward. The user's mutated elbows look and function like tape dispensers, from where he can fire lengths of tape that stick to anything he aims at. That tape is said to not be unlimited, but he never seems to run out, so eh. The tape he shoots is very strong and can be used to immobilize targets, maneuver around, or secure areas. He can also choose to either cut it off or leave it attached to his gross elbows. The only downside is that overusing this quirk gives him dry skin. He has a tail. It is prehensile and muscular. He just has a tail. Main series heroine Uraraka fumbles her way through the story using her emitter-type quirk, Zero Gravity. By touching anything with 5 of her 10 pads on her hands, she can remove the Earth's gravitational pull from that object. She can then clasp her hands together, making all 10 pads touch, to undo the effect. While it is a simple power, it can be quite useful in apprehending targets and causing destruction. After some training, she has also become very proficient at making herself float, allowing for immense mobility. The only downside is that the human body isn't great at coping with the zero gravity, so she will often experience intense nausea when using the quirk. Here we go. The most important quirk in the series, one for all. An emitter accumulation type that has been used by 9 people so far, including our main character Deku. This quirk contains 2 crucial components. a power stockpile ability, and a transference ability. The power stockpile allows for gradual accumulation of physical strength, which, when fully charged, can be unleashed for devastating blows. The transference ability, meanwhile, allows the user to pass on One for All to someone by having them ingest their DNA while intending to pass it on. What's important here is that this transference power will transfer all quirks within the giver, meaning that if that person had a quirk before receiving One for All, that quirk will also be transferred and become a permanent part of One for All. Because of this, there are numerous quirks that are stored within One for All, which the current user, Deku, has gained access to by fully acclimating to the power. Power Stockpile and Transference are the two original powers that initially belonged to Yoichi Shigaraki, the younger brother of All for One. The latter he was born with, and the former was given to him by his brother, who didn't know about Transference. Deku has since mastered the use of the Power Stockpile, being able to circulate the energy across his body to reduce strain, and then explosively increasing it just in the moment of impact. He has also weaponized the resulting air pressure for distance attacks. Fajin is the quirk that belonged to the third user of One for All, and it allows the user to store up kinetic energy. By repeating regular movements like walking or stretching, the user can generate explosive energy to be released at will. Combining this with One for All stockpile can yield extremely powerful results. Danger Sense was the quirk of Hikage Shinomori, the fourth user, and is basically a spidey sense. This quirk allows the user to sense incoming danger moments before it happens, thus allowing them to react quickly. However, this sense only reacts to outright malice, so cannot detect more complex dangers. Additionally, if an attack is too fast to react to no matter what, this sense will not help you. Black Whip is the power that belonged to the fifth user, Daigoro Banjo. It allows the wielder to produce energy tendrils from any part of their body and command them at will. It is an immensely versatile power that can be used to swing around, for attacking, for mobilization, etc. Possibilities are basically limitless with this power. Smokescreen was wielded by the sixth user, N, and allows the production of smoke. That's kind of it. Float belonged to Nana Shimura, the seventh user, and again, kinda just does what the name suggests. It allows for continuous, easy levitation. The eighth user, All Might, didn't add any power to this pool as he was quirkless. The second user's quirk has not yet been revealed as of writing this video. While One for All is obviously immensely powerful and versatile, it comes with one massive downside. The human body is not made to handle multiple quirks, and so, as the power is accumulated over the generations, One for All is like a poison that saps the user's life and shortens it considerably. By the time the fourth user received it, he would not live longer than early 40s. This is a consequence of someone who already has a quirk receiving this massive power. Due to this though, Deku is seemingly exempt from this side effect, as he was quirkless and thus empty when he received the power. He did however have to work around the power's immense might in other ways, as it easily could have blown him to bits. This video is getting very long, so let's speed it up a little. Class B's Shishida wields the transformation type Beast quirk, which allows the user to transform into a large, monstrous beast. This transformation is completely willful and can be turned on and off however one pleases. In this transformed state, Shishida's sense, physical strength, and enthusiasm are increased many-fold. Kendo's transformation quirk is another very self-explanatory one, Big Fist. She can instantly enlarge either of her hands to about 3 times the size of her own body, with the additional mass being able to cause devastating damage, even allowing her to weaponize wind pressure. The transformation itself also has a little bit of momentum, so she can maximize damage by timing the transformation just right at the time of impact. Unfortunately named powers aside, this is Kurohiro's emitter type quirk, which allows him to fuse into anything that is black or dark. This includes both things that are black normally and things covered in shadows. He can slip in and out at will and move around within them without any limitations on his physical body. If he possesses something that is mobile, he can force it to move while inside of it. He spit out the glue! Ew! Obviously, that's actually all he can do. He just spits glue from his weird head. That's pretty much it, yeah. If you ever feel bad about how you name your OC characters, remember that Horikoshi named this guy Manga. Power is an emitter-type quirk called Comic, by which he can summon comic book sound effects into the real world. These sound effects are solid objects that hold the properties of that sound effect. So if Manga says boing, the resulting object will be bouncy. The only known weakness is that his throat can get sore through overuse. I actually had to stop the recording there because my actual real-life throat got sore as well, so hey, immersion. Monoma boasts one of the most interesting powers in Class B, with his emitter-type quirk, Copy. By touching someone, Monoma gains access to their quirk for up to 10 minutes. This copied ability is just as powerful as the original, and only limited to Monoma's understanding of it. He can also copy multiple abilities at once and hold them within his body, again adhering to that 10-minute time limit for each of them. Moreover, even if the time limit runs out, the lasting effects of his quirk activation can still remain. If he altered something in his environment, for example changed the size of something, it will not just revert because he ran out of time, it will still be affected. He can, however, only copy the base of a quirk, meaning that he can't duplicate any improvements or alterations made by the original user. This makes copying accumulation types essentially pointless. Kaibara's Gyrate quirk is a transformation type that allows him to spin any part of his body at very high speeds. He mostly uses it to turn his fingers into deadly drills. The American exchange student Pony comes with a very unique power, the mutant-type Horn Cannon quirk. This ability makes the user grow horns which they can then launch as projectiles, regrowing them fairly quickly. Additionally, the user can keep up to 4 airborne horns under telepathic control for more complex attacks and maneuvers. The horn growth will slow down, however, if the user's diet doesn't include enough. Lizards are really cool, and I wish I could give you like a full 6-hour lecture on them. But for now, Tokage boasts Lizard Tail Splitter, a transformation quirk which allows her to split her body into multiple small segments which she can control telepathically. Crucially, separated organs retain their functions, so by splitting off her eye, she can see even as a floating piece of skin. However, there's a limit to how many parts she can split herself into, and overshooting that will cause the excess segments to fall dead. She can regenerate them, but that takes time and leaves her open. Kinoko is not only best girl of Class B, but she also has a pretty strong quirk. Mushroom is an emitter-type power which allows the user to generate and spread fungus spores from their body. Once these spores make contact with a solid surface, they will quickly grow into full-grown mushrooms. The spores can grow from any surface, including walls, floors, people, and worst of all, inside of people. They require humidity to grow efficiently. The main downside of this ability is its indiscriminate nature, so Kinoko can accidentally affect allies. To that end, she makes sure to equip them with disinfectant and ethanol, which can counteract the spores. Poltergeist is an emitter-type quirk which allows the user to telepathically control any small object. The only known limit is the weight of all controlled objects combined cannot exceed the average weight of a human being, so around 60 or 70 kilograms. Razor Sharp allows the user to sprout sharp knives from all over their body. That's pretty much it. They're just sharp knives of varying sizes and shapes. Our second exchange student, this time from China, is Rin, who wields the Scale quirk. a transformation type which allows him to grow scales all over his body at will. These scales can either be used as a suit of armor or fight off as projectiles. Rin's costume includes gauntlets that can fire these scales at crazy speeds like a Gatling gun. The Quiet Yui uses the size quirk, an emitter type which allows her to resize anything she touches. The only limitation is that it doesn't work on living things, and to activate it, she needs to clap her hands together. Class B star and part-time Titan Honenuki is the wielder of the powerful softening quirk, which allows the user to soften any material they come into contact with, essentially turning it into quicksand. While this doesn't work on anything alive, it can be a tremendously effective trapping tool. All the softened material will, however, revert back to their regular property if Honenuki falls unconscious. It's in the name again. Tsuburaba can create sheets of solid air, either using them as shields or as walls. They can be broken, however, and their size is limited by his lung capacity. This transformation type is also one of the simplest quirks in the series, Tetsutetsu's hardening, which allows him to harden his body. That's kind of it. The degree to which he can harden is variable, and he can force himself to be entirely steel hard, which allows for both excellent offense and defense. He also boasts additional defense against fire. Sucks at long range though, and its strength is dependent on how much iron he's been eating. Twin Impact is Nirengeki Shoda's emitter type quirk, and it is really cool. Basically, after hitting anything, he can then activate a delayed, much more powerful second hit at the exact same spot. The delay of this second hit can be whatever the user wants, which makes for a great way to throw off opponents mid-fight. This mutant quirk replaces the user's hair with a collection of vines, which they can control at will. These vines are thorny and immensely strong, as well as isolating towards electricity. The only downside is that they are actual plants and need sunlight and water. Awase is the holder of the Weld quirk, an emitter type which allows the user to fuse any two objects that they are touching together on a subatomic level. This has surprising versatility, as he can weld shields onto himself as armor, weld his opponents into solid structures to restrain them, or weld his allies onto himself to carry them away. In case you hadn't yet caught on how, despite the whole biology angle, quirks can often be basically magic, let's look at brainwashing, Shinso's emitter type power. If a target verbally responds to the user while the quirk is active, they will be put under the user's control. The user can then command them to do any number of things. This control comes with a few caveats, however. While this quirk can control multiple people at the same time, it cannot be activated on multiple people at the same time. What this means is that if you want to have more than one brainwashed slave, you have to brainwash them one by one, no multi-hit combos. The orders they receive can also not be too complex, simple stuff only. Shinso also used to be unable to make them talk, but he overcame that limit with training. His voice has to be heard as a direct sound wave, so anything that digitized, like a micro or a megaphone, will cause the quirk to not work. And lastly, even slight physical contact can wake the targets out of their brainwashing. Shy Sasuke over here holds one of the most powerful translation abilities in the series, a quirk named Manifest. Basically, Tamaki can manifest the properties of anything he's able to eat, as long as it is still in his digestive system. So, if he eats octopus, he can grow tentacles. If he eats chicken, he can grow talons, etc. This isn't limited to food either. He can also eat minerals to grow crystalline structures, for example. If he can eat it, he can be it. Fan favorite and current pain in my ass Mirio possesses a notoriously cool quirk, a called permeation. Permeation allows the user to make parts of their body or the entire body intangible, allowing them to slip through matter at will. This fucks with physics in a few key ways. If the quirk is deactivated while the entire body overlaps with matter, the user will be propelled away explosively as the universe tries to fix an impossible situation. Doing this while on the ground allows for enormous bursts of speed. However, another, less pleasant aspect of this quirk is that everything passes through the body, including light, sound, and air. Thus, fighting with this quirk means fighting without your senses. The least noteworthy of the big three still packs quite a punch, as Nejire uses the wave motion quirk, another power which allows her to convert her physical stamina into spiraling surges of energy. She can then launch those surges forward, and while they are quite slow, their destructive energy can be immense. This power is only limited by her physical life energy and stamina. If she runs out, she's in trouble. The actual best girl in MHA is already really powerful, so wisely, Horikoshi chose to give her a fairly weak power. She'd just be too OP otherwise. Hatsume's quirk is Zoom, a mutant-type power that allows her to zoom her vision and see up to 5 kilometers. I sure hope that one day she'll be able to see me. Moving on from useless powers, how about a plot-breaking one? Eri's Rewind is an emitter accumulation type that allows the little girl to rewind living things to a previous state. This rewind can be as little as rewinding someone who is hurt back to health, or as terrifying as rewinding someone to before they existed. This immense power is the result of a mutation and has no basis in Eri's parents whatsoever. Its only weakness, besides being hard to control, is that it requires to be built up over time before being usable, with the horn atop the user's head indicating when it is ready to be used. And the award for most misleading quirk name goes to Ketsubutsu's Totaki and his Boomerang quirk, an emitter-type power which can make things boomerang, but doesn't have to. Basically, this quirk allows the user to control the trajectory of anything they throw. This includes, but isn't limited to, boomerang shots. Allows the user to harden objects besides their own body. Let's be real, you don't remember this guy. Oh god, oh fuck Horikoshi, why? I mean, Tatami from Tsubutsu High boasts a telescopic quirk, a transformation type that allows the user to retract their body parts into themselves, kind of like a turtle, if it were horrifyingly gross. Important to note, besides how gross it is that while retracting is instant, coming back out takes some time. Rounding out this school of utter weirdos is a man whose quirk is literally Vibrate. This power allows the user to vibrate anything they touch, with the predominant utility of it being causing earthquakes by touching the ground. The user, Shindo, is not immune to these tremors though, and can be left immobilized by the aftershocks. However, this vibration can be used to tear apart matter at a very low level, as this is fight against muscular. Moving on to Shiketsu, Horikoshi's naming talent strikes once again, with Extendo Hair, Mora's mutant-type quirk. This quirk grants him full control of the length, strength, and movement of every hair in his body, which he uses to coat himself in a massive tuft of living fur, to both defend and attack with his cut. Kimi's quirk is Glamour, which allows her to emit mist from her mouth. That mist can then produce any illusion that the user needs, being able to deceive people on both visual and auditory levels. These illusions can get quite big, enough to fill an entire room. It has been noted she is under strict supervision as to when and how she's allowed to use the quirk for the potential damages this can cause. just as we thought we'd be free of body horror quirks, along comes Shishikura and his transformation quirk, Meatball. His ability allows him to mold and reshape human flesh. He can use it on himself to separate his limbs and control them telepathically, or he can use it on others where he can transform them into horrifying sentient meat clumps if he touches them. Keeping them like that takes active concentration though. In conclusion, that is a spicy meatball! The last active student on our list is also one of the most bombastic ones, Inasa, and his emitter quirk